And that's when you need move number 2. Move number 2 is this. The attack is temptation. The attack is temptation, but the defense is the breastplate of righteousness that protects your heart. The breastplate of righteousness. Paul says you need that. Listen, what does a breastplate cover? Right, covers your heart, covers your chest, right? But it also covers your heart as a part of that. Church, all righteousness is, okay? And Paul says it's the breastplate of righteousness. All righteousness is, maybe the easiest way to remember it, is that it's just a right relationship with God. A right relationship with God. It's a right posture towards God. In Jesus, you're justified and you're in right standing with God. Your sins have been forgiven. You've been made clean. You've been made new. The new has come. The old has been washed away. You're righteous because of Jesus. And in him, your heart is safe and it's secure and you're in right standing before God. Paul says, yeah, you got to protect that. You got to protect that. Not the righteousness. The righteousness comes from Jesus. The righteousness was never ours to begin with. The righteousness is all him. What you need to protect is what the righteousness is covering, and that's your heart. You need to protect the heart that's being covered by that piece of armor. Because after he's tried to loosen up and distort the truth that you live by, what the snake is going to swipe at next is trying to get you to put your trust for your problem or your trust for the conflict or your trust for the anxiety in the situation, the trust for your identity in anything other than the righteousness of Jesus that covers you. Anything else. Trust something else. Why? Because Jesus isn't enough. And by the way, Jesus is boring and he doesn't want as much for your life as you want for your life. So why don't you just kind of reach underneath that breastplate and take your heart out and try giving it somewhere else? This is where attacks of temptation come in, okay? When we're tempted to trust something other than Jesus to make us right, to make us worthy, to make us whole, to make us righteous. It's a funny thing, though. When I say the word temptation, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Yeah, right? Usually, for most people, like sins of the flesh. Right? That's kind of, it's a funny association that we have with temptation, right? A lot of us, that's what we think about. But why is it, I'm just asking, why is it that when I say the word temptation, nobody in this room thinks of cheeseburgers? Why is it that nobody in this room thinks of pizza? Why is it that nobody thinks about laziness? Why is it that nobody thinks about a lack of accountability in our culture? Why do we hate that so much? When I say temptation, why don't we think about friends we shouldn't have? And why don't we think about people who are trying to influence us in negative ways and adversely affect our lives and take us down roads we shouldn't be going down and tell us what we want to hear instead of what we need to hear? Why don't we think about our chronic inability to follow through with what we say? Or why don't we think about sleeping in on Sundays? Why don't we? It's all temptation. All of it is. See, listen, temptation is never something that arrives on your doorstep and says, knock, knock, temptation is here. That's not how it works. Temptation never arrives looking like an attack. A temptation arrives as something that you want it to look like. That's why it's called temptation. Are you with me? Yeah. The attack of temptation isn't always some like fierce, awful demon in the middle of the night. It's a snake in disguise that wants you to believe that what you're feeling is more important than what God said. But make no mistake, listen, this thing is going for your ankle. Big time. It's going to take a swipe at you. You need the breastplate of righteousness. Proverbs 4:23. It says, above all else. Above all else. And by the way, in the Hebrew, the word all means all. Okay? Everything, above everything else, guard your heart, for it determines the course of your life. It's the rudder of the ship. How do I guard my heart? I'm going to keep this real simple for the sake of time, okay? I'm going to keep it real simple. Be careful what you look at and be careful who you listen to. That's it. Be careful what you look at, be careful what you listen to. I don't know about you, but on my phone, every week, in fact, it's usually right before service, which I find spiritually ironic, but that's a different story, okay? I get an alert on my phone that alerts me to, it's my screen time report every week. Does anybody else get one of these? Or is Jesus just trying to talk to me? It might just be me, okay? But no, it's a screen time report. And the whole purpose of this report is all it's doing is telling me, hey, just so you're aware, you spent 6 hours looking at Instagram this week. How do you feel about that? Right? You look at your own, okay? I'm just telling you. That's not just me. That's actually, oh, come on, somebody. Some of you are like upwards of 10, 20 on Facebook alone, okay? All right? How many of you, like, the screen report would come up and be like, you spent 200 hours on Netflix this week. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's a screen report. Here's all the screen report is saying. It's just saying, we just want you to be aware, here's what you looked at and here's what you listened to. This is what went into your brain and what you put into your heart through your eyes and your ears this week. Okay? How much of that is helpful that you took in from your screen? How much of it is based in truth? How much of it is based on what Fox News projected about the elections this last week? How much of it's based on CNN and their projection of what happened in the elections this week? Because this is a nonpartisan sermon, okay? Take your pick. How much of what you took in was actually helpful for the problems that you face? And how much of it was just you self-medicating or numbing over issues in your life? Right? Nobody gets more peaceful from this stuff. Did you know that? It's scientifically proven at this point. Nobody gets more peaceful from this. You know why? Because most of it is a temptation to reach in, take your heart out from behind the breastplate of righteousness, and put it somewhere else. Give it away. So, if we want to do a better job of fighting off the attack, then we need to take that heart back and put it back where it belongs. And we need to stop eating our problems and stop gossiping and stop chasing culture and stop self-medicating and stop being so lazy and lethargic or lowering the standards that we live by and settling for junk that is beneath us. And we put life on autopilot and we shove it to the back burner and we just say, just numb me over. Guys, all of this is spiritual warfare. All of this. Everything is spiritual. Okay? All of life is subject to being a battleground. It's not some abstraction. Your enemy is out there trying to pinpoint where you're the most vulnerable. And he doesn't care which temptation works on you and which doesn't. If it is a sin of the flesh, then so be it. Let's go. All right? But if it's something else, he's going to find that too. He doesn't get frustrated. He just tries a different avenue. He just goes at it a whole different way. He doesn't care what the method is of how he gets you to do it or what temptation works on you and what doesn't. The devil doesn't have favorite temptations, okay? All they are to him is a strategy. I'm just trying to get you to take your heart out from behind the breastplate and put it somewhere I can get at it. That's all I'm trying to get you to do. He doesn't care if it's sex, drugs, achievement, perfection, culture, gossip, overeating, laziness, ignorance, unawareness. It all is just a means to an end, which is to get you to place your trust in anything other than full, complete dependence on Jesus.